I get discouraged for sure, and I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. My name is Dale Parrish. I'm the virtual program coordinator for the state of Indiana for COS. And I want to welcome you to our broadcast this evening. We've got a very, very special one lined up for you this evening. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And I want to bring on my co-host. Hello, Ken.
Hello, Dale. How are you?
My co-host is Ken Kashuba. Ken is our state communications coordinator.
I see you haven't corrected that banner still yet, Dale.
I've got you as host, don't I?
Yeah. We can switch that tonight if you want, but I thought I'd let you know you haven't corrected that banner.
You want to be host. I know you want to be host. Okay.
No, I'll leave that responsibility totally up to you.
All right. Well, Ken will be monitoring viewer comments and questions. So you are encouraged, if you're viewing tonight, to make a comment or ask a question. And Ken will be monitoring those and put those up on the screen for us to address should there be one that he feels is of interest. Ken, this is number 202, broadcast number 202. And you've been along for 68 of those. So we just celebrated our 200 mark just recently. So now
flying right along. Yep, flying right along.
Yes, we are. We're moving right along. Okay, let's Ken. I want to talk about what we have lined up for this evening, and let me bring up the lineup. We've got some good guests coming up this evening. Debbie Stewart's going to come on and give us an update on the World Health Organization. Shouldn't be anything controversial there, I'm sure, but Debbie will update us on the WHO. I got part 2 of an interview I did with Dr. Dan Stock on the mRNA vaccine. And this is the real interesting one as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, we'll be playing that as that's a recorded interview. Then when we switch over to what's happening in Indiana, we're going to be bringing on Susan Gervais, our new state grassroots coordinator. And we'll introduce, Susan's been on before. She was previously a region captain. We've had her on before, but this then is a new job for her, new position. So we'll get to understand what she's going to be doing. And then I'm going to get on my soapbox tonight. So I saw something in the news that has really got me
fired up.
Got me fired up a bit. No big deal, but so I'm going to get on the soapbox tonight. And our state director, Dale Tipton, has another installation that as a contributor, Dale's directives, that we'll be bringing him on. And he's got another video that he did on the FBI. So we got a good lineup tonight. Should be very, very interesting.
Good looking group.
Yeah, good looking group. So let me get to something I wanted to present tonight. And we're going to start talking about this more and more as we go along. This is Do you remember, Ken, when did Convention of States do the actual simulation in Williamsburg? Do you remember the year we did that?
I think the simulation, if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm taking kind of a guess because it seems like it's been ages, but I'm thinking it was 2017.
I'm thinking it was back around that time too.
Yeah, I believe so, because I came on in 2016, and I believe it was that following year.
I need to get that date and get that in my mind. But what we did was we simulated an actual Convention of States, what we think it would look like. Well, it was a big hit. Took a lot of planning, a lot of work, and we're going to do it again. And we're going to do it again in August. So I want to start talking about this. But in the meantime, Mark Meckler has put out a video on this. So I want to go ahead and play that, and then we'll get into the Dan Stock interview. So
sounds good.
If the government ever becomes a tyranny, we're going to give you this gift. You get a chance to get together, get your commissioners together from all over the country and restrain that tyranny. But because it's never been done, we wanted to see it done. We want it to be tried out so people understand, how does it work? What kind of rules are there? What will be an interplay between commissioners? When you're going to do something this important, it's important to practice.
Giving knowledge, information, vision, and hope. Hope that the federal government really can be curtailed and that this process really can work.
And this is the real deal. I mean, this is kind of the precursor to the real Super Bowl. Delegates, commissioners from all 50 states.
They're going to be able to go back home and talk to their fellow legislators and say, look, let me tell you exactly how it worked. I can tell you from firsthand, it can be done. It will be effective.
So I think there are people who've never even heard of it that are going to see this and be impressed. And I think that builds enthusiasm.
This is the defining moment and the last opportunity to get our republic right.
We need a solution as big as the problem.
All right. I think that ought to be a great happening. So that's coming up in August, and like I said, we'll be talking about this more and more as we approach that date. Well, let's move on now. I want to play for everyone the follow-up interview that I did with Dr. Dan Stock on the mRNA vaccine. So let's get going on that. And when we're completed here with this, we'll move on to Debbie Stewart. So be right back, everyone.
Good.
Well, greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Indiana Live Comms team, once again with you. I'm calling this interview with Dr. Dan Stock the mRNA interview part 2. We recently did a part 1 with Dan, and Dan, as you probably know, this vaccine, another vaccine in the national news. I think we're going to be hearing about vaccines forever, it seems. But this mRNA vaccine has been in the news here lately, and we thought that the best source that we have to turn to about vaccines is our own Dr. Dan Stock here in Convention of States here in Indiana. So I brought Dan on here recently, and he educated us about the mRNA vaccine, what it's all about, and the dangers that it can pose. So it was a very informative part 1 interview with Dan. But I wanted to bring him back, and let's do a part 2 interview regarding the mRNA vaccine, because there is information being spread about this vaccine getting into our food supply through farm animals. So none other than Dan being our expert on this, I thought, let's bring Dan back on and let's talk about this particular aspect of the whole mRNA vaccine issue. So without further ado, let's bring Dan on. Hi, Dan.
How you doing, man?
Good, good. I just, as you heard, I just kind of laid the groundwork, I think, as to where we are on this issue of the mRNA vaccine. As you heard me explain, we had a really great interview with you recently. Learned a great deal about the vaccine and how dangerous it can be. But what we didn't talk about, and I want to address this time, is this information being spread about it possibly getting into our food supply. So, kind of, Dan, if you don't mind, kind of summarize what you told us in part one of this about the vaccine very briefly, and then take us into this concept of it getting into our food supply.
Sure. So part one is the lipid nanoparticle, these cationic lipids they put around mRNA to make it so it can get into a body and go through cells. That stuff's toxic to just about everything we've tested with it. So that's a bad idea from the get-go.
Right.
Second thing is, hey, making a cell make a foreign protein that the immune system has not been taught is normal will guarantee that the vaccine will cause the immune system to go destroy every cell that's making that abnormal protein. And since these lipid nanoparticles carry these abnormal gene sequences into irreplaceable tissue, any mRNA vaccine you make is going to go damage the animal you put it in, because it will make his immune system go destroy stuff that he can't regenerate. So lipid nanoparticles toxic, putting in foreign mRNA is toxic. Neither of these things works out well. That's why it's been so bad for humans.
Okay.
But the next question is, well, what if we did it to animals? What's the effect that would have on the human population? I think it's good for me to understand why people are asking about this.
Where do you think this part of the concept started? You have any idea?
Well, we have to remember that right now, the way the healthcare system, even the veterinary healthcare system in the country works, is the way you get selected to be an expert in this field is that you're an idiot who's useful to somebody who's got campaign cash. So when you give, sorry, that's how Fauci got his job. All right. I mean, this is the reality of how our government works till we fix it. That's why you and I do what we do, right, Dale?
All right.
So the problem is that when you have lots of money and useful idiots put together into the same arena, lots of dumb ideas like, hey, maybe gassing Jews start to come out of that arena. And so the first dumb idea that came from this was something called a confined animal feeding operation, or a vertical horticulture organization, which basically means we're going to take a bunch of animals who used to have wide open spaces that they were not tightly confined with each other, and they ate their normal food. And what we're going to do is put them in huge close proximity to each other, sometimes multiple species in close proximity to each other, feed them garbage. And lo and behold, we start seeing a whole bunch of illnesses break out in these things. We got, Marek's disease and swine influenza, and all these things start happening. So the food industry then said, well, what are we going to do about this? And the useful idiots say, well, no, mRNA, why not? We got lots of money in that. For all I know, they're even doing this because they can use it as a way to kill the food supply of our enemies. I don't know. But this is what's the genesis of having the idea that we can use this mRNA technology to treat animals. The big fear being that most people have is, what is it going to do to the humans when we eat the animals that have been treated with this?
Okay. Right.
So there are two considerations I think that have to be looked at in that. The first one, and probably one that most people are scared of, is, hey, if we give this shot to a pig, is it going to be able to put over that same genetic material into me and get me vaccinated with the very thing it did? And that, I would say, is probably near impossible until somebody does a study that proves otherwise.
And Dan, is the pig's body going to react to this vaccine the same way a human body would react to it?
Yeah, some of the lower mammals, believe it or not all the immune systems are exactly like humans. Humans have one of the more advanced immune systems because we can actually make antibodies. Some of the lower vertebrates actually can't even do that. Like, I don't believe amphibians make antibodies. So they have one less way to screw up when you start screwing around with them using an mRNA vaccine. But for anything else, it's probably going to have very similar reactions in the animals.
Okay. Okay.
So in order for them, though, to get that genetic material into us, you have to understand our guts are very well designed to make sure that foreign genetic material from any animal we eat, whether it's been given mRNA therapy or not, is not going to do anything to us. Our guts are very good at keeping out the stuff they don't want in, destroying everything else and reducing it down to its basic building blocks so it can't do that. And in fact, this has been tested at other times where we tried to do other animals with other immunizing mechanisms. And what we were never able to do was to get the human beings who were eating it to get a measurable immune response that showed they had even seen the thing was there, and it show up in their DNA, see it being replicated for live in their tissues. It's not been demonstrated. And there's two reasons for that. First of all, your stomach and intestines are pretty good at making sure the bad stuff stays out and breaking down all the other stuff. Otherwise, every time we ate beef, we'd start growing horns and things like that. So that doesn't happen. The other reason it probably doesn't go that way is to get inside of us, somebody would have to actually put the mRNA back into another lipid nanoparticle. And when you give a cell that takes up this mRNA, it doesn't start making lipid nanoparticles. It makes what are called exosomes, and we do see those coming out. We don't have any good evidence that those are getting out through the gut and causing any kind of reaction in the people who eat the food. When we've done this in animal trials, feed this animal to that animal, we haven't seen this come out. There was a recent study done, in my opinion, not very well done, that was kind of a surrogate marker that showed maybe this could happen. It was a big stretch from the way that they didn't actually measure immune system reaction very well. It looked like a bunch of nothing to me. Now, the second thing that people worry about, though, is what's going to happen to the quality of the food otherwise when we give them these shots. So, again, this is not as well studied as it would be, because I can tell you they do even worse studies on vaccines for animals than they do for the average human. That may be going downhill shortly because pretty much the FDA said we can do anything you want, we'll call it science. But I can tell you the bigger concern is that, look, lipid nanoparticles full of our mRNA are going to make the immune system attack parts of that animal. So that animal is going to get sicker. There's no question about it. If they make one of these genetic sequences that actually damages the immune system as bad as these mRNA vaccines we've given humans do, then you may actually have an animal who becomes a reservoir for tuberculosis, who becomes a reservoir for schistocercosis, for other things that can be transmitted through the food supply, because we actually do the exact opposite of what we were planning to do for the animal, kind of like what we did with humans.
Right.
So it may well be that what we end up doing is making animals who are so sickly that the herds die off or become unhealthy to eat because they're loaded with pathogens that their sick immune system can't fight.
Wow. Okay.
That's probably a more realistic fear.
Kind of unintended consequence in a way, huh?
Yeah. And I have to be honest with you. I think certain members of the animal husbandry activity have already come out and said, we're not touching this with a 10-foot pole. For instance, I saw one of the dairy organizations who said, there's no way we're going to do this because as soon as we start giving it to some of our herds, there's going to be a market for the un-mRNA vaccinated herds. And we know that those of us who aren't serving it will go down.
Right, right.
So we know that some of them already said it's not going to happen. I think it's in the areas where CAFOs, these confined animal feeding operations, are the most used, which is chickens and pigs, is where we're mostly seeing it of concern that they might try this, because they're the guys who are having the biggest problem right now with these rampant infections, because their method of raising animals is pretty abnormal. And so it remains to be seen what's going to come out from this.
Yeah, I've actually found some due to research. Some states actually are proposing legislation banning or controlling the implementation of this vaccine to farm animals, like Missouri, Arizona, Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a wise move. You have to remember that useful idiots who have money typically like to get their money back, and they'll do dumb things. Well, this, I won't come out and say that mRNA shots for animals is a doom deal. If you ask me, would I invest $10 in it? It's like, no. But my fear is that the studies won't be done well, because these studies are done even worse for animal vaccines than they are for humans. And this is very worrisome to me, that we may make an entire herd of pigs that's so sick that it harbors pathogens that can be transmitted by the gastrointestinal route when people eat it. And I'm almost glad to see that they're saying, look, in our state, we are going to say, no, this technology cannot be used until someone has come back to the legislature with solid evidence that says it's got a benefit without risk to the humans who would eat this.
Have you any idea where Indiana stands on this?
To my knowledge, we've not taken a stance on this one way or the other. I would love to see Indiana do this. I think right now our Indiana Department of Health is so in denial about the harms of the mRNA vaccines and trying desperately to ignore the reality that's been demonstrated that they probably would oppose it. And at least the executive branch seems to be equally ignorant of what's going on. So I suspect we would have a hard time getting this through a legislature with the lobbyists who now can have so much sway in our legislature. But I would love to see them do this, because until a well-done scientific study, and this is going to take, I'm going to have to see the animals for 3 years, and then I'm going to have to see the humans eat the animals for 2 years before I'm going to feel comfortable that this would slide down my throat. I'm going to need to see some pretty thorough research done on this before I'm going to be comfortable with this technology being used in the food that I eat.
So you're pretty much in agreement, Dan, that the vaccine in farm animals is not going to cause any harm, but it's the unintended consequences. It's the other things that could result from the animals getting sick and so forth.
They're not going to be able to slide an mRNA vaccine into me by putting it in the food that I eat from the animal who took the shot. What I'm worried about is them being able to serve me sick food.
Okay. All right.
But I'm not worried they're going to alter my genetics or get my immune system dancing to the COVID tune because of what they give the animal. I'm more concerned that what I'm going to get is an animal full of tuberculosis, schistosomiasis, something like that.
All right. All right.
Well, that was a great interview there, Dale.
That was good, wasn't it?
Yep. No, leave it to Dr. Dan.
You know, when I first set that up, what I was reading in the news looked to me like they thought it was going to get into our food and it was going to impact us. But I think Dan helped to clarify that that's probably not realistic, not going to happen. So, I'm glad he was able to come on and clarify that for us. Very good. All right, Ken, let's move on to our next topic. And we're going to bring our guest on, Debbie Stewart, and talk about the World Health Organization. Nothing controversial there. Nothing at all. This ought to be pretty boring, I would imagine, don't you think?
Yeah, the WHO? I mean, the WHO. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, what could be going wrong there? So,
such a boring topic, and nothing that's going to impact us in any way whatsoever.
That's right, certainly. But go ahead, Debbie. What have you got for us tonight?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, most of what I am going to say tonight is not good news for us.
See what I tell you, Ken? What did I tell
you? So could we pivot, Debbie, and talk about the WHO from my generation?
Wait, didn't they have like the WHO concert? Wasn't that where some people got trampled and everything?
I think that just did happen. Yeah,
it did. It was a while back, but yeah, I remember that. Okay.
So go ahead with the bad news.
Right, on with the bad news. So what's going on? We want to talk about an update of what the World Health Organization has been up to. So let's talk about recent happenings. So the last 10 days of May, the World Health Assembly met in Geneva, Switzerland. And three main things. They're trying to force their One Health policy on the entire world. So they're working on that. and they're building their ideology. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. They were working on amending the international health regulations, which are amendments, and they had over 300 new amendments were proposed. And those amendments that are going from that have been proposed, in those amendments, there are a lot of things that changed from recommended to you're obligated to. So it's not becoming, hey, we're there to help if you need us. Their terminology is starting to sound like you will do this or there will be punishment. So there's definitely a switch. And I had talked about this a couple of months ago when we did this, that their language is definitely changing to you must follow versus, you might want to. They also want to solidify a new pandemic treaty. They're calling it the Zero Treaty. And this is what I was talking about last time, where normally United States, we have to get a 2/3 approval in our Senate. But what they are doing is they're saying, well, it's a treaty, but we're calling it an accord. So we ought to be able to bypass the U.S. Senate, and it ought to just be able to get signed on by like the president and just approved by him. So interesting too, Biden back in January of 2022 sent some amendments without any press release or any information whatsoever. He sent a number of these amendments to the World Health Organization, trying to really emphasizing that they enforce this with all 194 member states, that these amendments have to be followed. So Biden is right in sync with this, and kind of he's leading the charge with this World Health Organization, the new pandemic treaty, and the international health regulations. So the good news is they failed to complete everything they wanted to in those 10 days, and they did not take a final vote yet. So that's kind of where that was. It's interesting, though, that more than 300 amendments were proposed in this new treaty. Not one nation dissented during the meetings of having the global World Health Organization, have a global takeover as far as health goes. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about control. But all of this is falling under climate control. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, if there's any kind of health emergency anywhere in the world, and by the way, we define WHO, we define what health emergency is. It could be anything from, some kind of a breakout of E. coli to something major or minor, doesn't matter. But if they call it that, they can then implement these amendments and their constitution, and basically all the nations of the world will have given over their sovereignty to the World Health Organization. It's very interesting. At this meeting, not one U.S. rep was there from Congress. Not one senator from D.C. was there. The only person that was there really reporting was Michelle Bachmann, who's the former congresswoman. And she is the president of Regent University, but she was there live, and she was saying, this is not good. Some of the things they were proposing was one woman from one of the African nations was like, well, if these are our new amendments and this is the new pandemic treaty, we need to have a simulation this fall worldwide to make sure that all of our plans work. So there's all this stuff going on where they are, so the complete global control, their goals, their complete global control would be over healthcare, travel, food, shipping, crops, energy, climate, and also over our emotional state, that whole social kind of thing. So they're saying that now the World Health Organization is going to be in charge of all of this. All right.
Yeah, nothing could go wrong there at all.
No, not at all.
Nothing
And so, and because they're using this thing called One Health is really, it's basically saying it's putting human beings on the same level as plants and animals. So if your cow is sick and your son is sick, you have to pick, because this human race is not superior to anything. And even to the point where they say that humans are poisoning the earth, that we are poison to the earth because we are taking away from the ecosystem. So that's kind of what's going on there. Let's talk about the control issue. They want more control. So if they declare an international health emergency at any point in time, and this will be decided by Tedros, who is the leader, he makes the decision, then now all that would nullify the powers of the individual nations. And then we would then be subservient to their amendments and their constitution.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Biden administration, I told you, sent those amendments over there. So he was kind of the initiator, like, we need to make this happen. Now we know it's probably not Biden because he doesn't have enough smarts to be doing that, but there's probably somebody behind the scenes that is pushing that. And it's interesting too, because as far as control, Obama, former President Obama just came out calling for the tracking of digital fingerprints to combat misinformation. So they want to, one of their things is we have to get rid of all disinformation. So we're going to have lots of global surveillance and have more and more and more. Okay. The director, Tedros, said, this is his quote, when the next pandemic comes knocking, and it will, we must be ready to answer decisively, collectively, and equitably. There's that word equitable, though.
Equitable, yeah.
Yeah. And they're suggesting they run 3 simulation exercises as well as demanding global compliance in order to test this new theory. All right. There's other things going on, like in October of this past year, the World Health Organization, Johns Hopkins University, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation conducted a pandemic simulation in Brussels, Belgium. And they called it catastrophic contagion, just to see how all this would work. But they're very concerned about any harmful information or disinformation. So they think that it's their job to enact laws, procedures, and even what would happen if you don't comply. So what are the consequences of that? A couple other quotes I thought would be interesting is, they're saying, there's another quote from the World Health Organization, the health of all peoples is fundamental to the attainment of peace and security and is dependent on the fullest cooperation of individuals and states. So you see where this is going. They're saying they are demanding cooperation and obedience from everybody, and they're making the rules, but they're the ones that get to do all the stuff. So there's one person that's running this thing. You guys may have heard of the 15-minute cities. That's currently going on in Europe, where everybody is 15 minutes by bike or walking from 9 or more important things like healthcare, grocery store, things like that you need. So they are implementing that in Europe and in China. The Dutch city of Utrecht is right now 100% of the population can get to 9 important needs within 15 minutes with their bikes. They don't want cars. The cars are out because they're messing with the ecosystem.
Right. Oh boy.
So that's kind of what's going on. Let's see. I just want to check on my time, Dale, because I know I don't want to go over. Let's talk about next steps. So what's going to happen next with the World Health? So they are meeting again, I believe, in September, and they're going to talk through some more of this. But the plan is by May of 2024, they take the vote and they implement all of these amendments and, of course, enforce their constitution where the language is changing. And that would happen in May, which is interesting because that's earlier in an election year. So that's such a coincidence.
Yeah.
That would give them time to do a simulation between May and November, maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing here, and you never know. So that's what's going to happen. So Michelle Bachmann has been on the trail getting people, senators and congressmen, to understand how important this is. And we actually do have some senators and congressmen that have come up with HR 79 in Congress and in Washington, D.C., that would pull us out of the World Health Organization and defund them. I don't know if it's passed. I don't think it has yet, but that's Jim Jordan and one other person are kind of spearheading that. Okay, so let's talk a little, we got a couple minutes left. Let's talk a little about the World Health Organization and children. And this part right now this is very difficult to talk about, but it's right on there. It's in their documents, but they have handpicked the Rutgers Foundation to do which did a worldwide, is a worldwide publisher of comprehensive sexuality education, to head up the sex education for children in all of the United States, or the world. It's being funded by Bill Gates, Planned Parenthood, and the United Nations. So what's that telling you?
Wow.
They are pushing for 3 main things. One, sex should happen for young children. Homosexuality is something to push them towards, and they want to normalize pedophilia. Now, some people are going to have a really hard time believing this is true, but it is in their documents, and they even have ages like 0 to 4. They're going to do this. 5 to 8. They're going to do this. Like for example, 5+, they want to push online pornography for 5-year-olds and over. They want them to be on the internet. They want to sexualize children at really young ages, which is really awful. So I can't get into details of this on the show, but it's really saddening. But the Netherlands right now has an official school curriculum. It's called Schoolleerplan Ouderwijs, and it's using the World Health Organization standards for their comprehensive sexuality education.
Why? What's the purpose for this? Why is it to make this type of thing normal? I mean, is that what the whole objective here?
Seem normal.
Yes, Klaus Schwab has even come out and said that pedophilia should be decriminalized, and he calls it age gap love, and that should be fine because every child has the human right to be sexualized, even at a very young age. I mean, we're talking, they have a category for 0 to 4-year-olds, and they're very
Isn't that amazing? That's amazing, isn't it?
It's so awful that when you read this stuff, you're like, who could humanly do something like this to kids? But they want to sexualize every kid. They want to get rid of the family. They want to get rid of parents. The whole One Health is part of your children. And so now the One Health is going to come in and start making decisions for parents. So it's just communism. It's
socialism. It's all wrapped up into socialism, isn't it?
The children are, Biden just said it like a couple weeks ago, the children are a property of the state.
Right.
They belong to the administration. So,
Right.
So the article in the Herald, this is in Scotland, said that the Scottish lessons are to normalize underage sexual activity. So they're encouraging even like sex games in the classrooms of young children. I'm talking kindergartners and first graders. This is just really bad.
Yes, my.
Yeah.
No more innocence in childhood, that's for sure.
Right. Even to the point where Japan in the McDonald's, they have mugs for the kids to get. And if you turn them a certain way, they show some stuff that kids shouldn't see. So it's just really messed up. So let's move on to what can we do about this? I know my time's up. Taking action. Well, first thing you can do is you can go to sovereigntycoalition.org. And Dale, I think you have that banner up there, right? And you can sign the declaration for the United States to exit the World Health Organization. We've got to say something. The fact that none of our U.S. congressmen, our 535 representatives and or senators we have, none of them went to this, and there's only 2 in DC that are trying to fight this. We need to sign that declaration. Also, talk to your senators and your representatives. Tell them you're concerned. Tell them you want accountability. Demand a hearing regarding the World Health Organization in Washington, D.C. People are pushing towards that. Any kind of leaders that you know here in town, talk to your sheriff and some of those people, because we're going to have to fight this at the local level, and we need to make sure our local leaders are willing to push back on this.
Okay. All right. So go to this website and sign the declaration to get us out of this, right?
Yeah, and you can go to the World Health Organization website, and you can dig through there, and you can read their constitution. You can see what they're doing. It's just, and you probably could go to Rutgers and see what they're doing, but it's not. Okay. Yeah.
So sovereigntycoalition.org.
Sovereigntycoalition.org. Yep.
All right. Well, Debbie, I hope next time you come on, you have better news.
Right. Right. We need to keep pushing back on this thing because they're doing it and we're not really knowing they're doing it. And by the time we realize it, it might be too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to shine
Debbie,
the light.
thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, Debbie.
All right. We'll see you later. Thank you.
Good night, Deb.
Bye.
Boy, that's shocking, Ken. I don't know. I don't have another word.
You know, yeah, you bring up the word pedophilia, and I think there's so much more out there that, like I said, we really can't get into that on this show right now. But yeah. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's probably not on the same vein. But Bill Gates was just visited China. He was just over there with the, meeting in China. I mean, obviously business in China as usual with Bill Gates, but there's so many question marks about him right now, and his connection with all that stuff. I don't know. Yeah, it's so deep. I think all of us get headaches thinking about it. But yeah, we do need to stop this WHO thing for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're running a little behind schedule here tonight, but I want to go ahead and bring on Dale Tipton. We'll do his, and I think I'll save my soapbox for the next broadcast. And
wow, I was looking forward to that.
I bet you were. Yes. Then we'll bring Susan on right after Dale here. So let's.
This is Dale Tipton with Convention of States, and I just wanted to take a minute and follow up on the Durham report and some things that I reported last time. I just went and looked up the federal law enforcement oath of office, which is what I took whenever I signed on with the FBI. I'd like to read it for you. I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Well, that's the oath as everybody takes it whenever they signs into duty as a new agent. There's no constitutional tests or anything that go with that. To see what you really know about the Constitution, it's just a simple oath. Something came from the Durham report that I think was very interesting, and this is an actual quote from John Durham in his prosecutive review of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And this is what he said, and I quote, "The answer is not the creation of new rules, but a renewed fidelity to the old. The promulgation of additional rules and regulation to be learned in yet more training sessions would likely prove to be a fruitless exercise if the FBI's guiding principles of fidelity, bravery, and integrity are not ingrained in the hearts and minds of those sworn to meet the FBI's mission of protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution of the United States." Close quote. You know, we have all kinds of rules in law enforcement. The FBI was found to violate many of those, and perhaps there should be a renewed emphasis on the type of people that are being hired and whether or not they have the moral character to actually uphold the Constitution and do the things that they swear to do. That's my opinion, and it's great to talk with you again. Have a great day.
Can't beat that FBI experience of his, can you?
No, and he's spot on. He's spot on. We have to be hiring people that are willing to uphold the oaths they take. Oaths mean nothing apparently in a lot of these situations.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's shift gears and let's go and talk about now some things happening within our state of Indiana, and a very important thing has just happened, and let's bring her on and talk to her about being our new state grassroots coordinator. Hello, Susan.
Good evening.
Hi, Susan.
How are you both? Hello.
Well, we're running a little behind schedule tonight.
I know.
I don't want to short circuit you in any way. So I'm glad you hung around so that we can bring you.
It was a pleasure. It was very depressing to listen to Debbie's report.
That's just. I'm going to be in a state of shock here for some time, I think.
Yeah.
We have a lot of work to do.
Debbie does that to you sometimes. You know, you just have to.
The truth hurts sometimes, but you know that's why we're here, and that's why we're fighting, and it's time to never give up, right? Never give up.
Never give up.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, Susan, let's talk about what's happening with you now. You're our new state grassroots coordinator.
Yeah.
You know, we're good on antonyms, so SGC is your
So those first two initials, that's my initials, Susan Gervais.
Oh, it is. Well, that's easy to remember.
Susan, I think.
Yes. That's the real reason you got appointed.
I think so. I have big shoes to fill.
Oh,
Because
right.
I'm following behind Dale Tipton, and he did a marvelous
Dale
job.
Tipton, now our state director, was the grassroots coordinator for the state. So
He was a great mentor.
maybe the next job for you will
No, I told him I'd stop at this one.
Oh, really? You already
can't leave anywhere.
The real truth, Dale, is she's worried she might have to lose all her hair in order to become a state director. You know,
you think that's a requirement? Is that?
It's starting to look that way.
No, I don't think so. Well, listen, Susan, tell us before we delve into the job per se, give us a little brief summary of your COS story.
Yeah, probably my COS story intensified during the time of the social unrest, the George Floyd, the border situation, the Benghazi, and all of those things, social unrest, people thinking of, just like Debbie said, you know, things that you're thinking, how can somebody think like this? How can somebody think that this is normal? So those were the times that I was talking most with my 4 grown children, and they all are very conservative and very concerned about the environment. And I told them, I can't talk with you anymore on this subject because it makes me too anxious. I remember the days when America was loved and honored, and people were willing to fight for its integrity and sovereignty. And I think that has faded some, and that's very depressing to me. So I said, no, I'm not going to talk to you guys about that anymore. And it was my son that said, you know, you ought to look at Convention of States because they are fighting for those very freedoms to get rid of that overreaching government. And so I looked into it and signed right away. I mean, there was no doubt that was where my thoughts were, that we need a strong, engaged army to fight this. And so here I am.
Good.
Great story.
Yeah, good story.
And thank your son.
I will, and I do. And he also is involved in different ways. So they all are. They all are. Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Well, tell us, Susan, what does a state grassroots coordinator do?
So there has to be someone that oversees the recruitment in every state. And so that's me. And so as people come on board, I make sure that they are seen or spoken with as soon as possible so that they're not left hanging when they say that they would like to join and be active. And then coordinate with the region directors and make sure that they have everything, all the tools that they need from me, or how can I help them obtain those things to help recruitment efforts and to help bring people on and keep them interested. And Dale did a marvelous job in bringing on directors and region directors, and he left me with in a very good state. But I would like to take that a step farther. I would like to see if I can't do something about after those people are already signed on with Convention of States, to get them, to help them to stay enthusiastic and to give them plenty to do that will cause them to have that feeling of accomplishment. Because I know people leave jobs because they don't feel like they have accomplished much, or they don't have that pride in themselves. I don't want anyone leaving COS because they feel like they don't have a place, or they don't have something to contribute. And everyone has something to contribute. Everyone comes to COS with diverse background, and that's what makes us strong. What is what we have to tackle is that we are not all in the same room feeding off each other's enthusiasm. And so things like this, Dale, you serve a very good purpose in bringing people together on the video. And we need to be able to communicate with these new baby volunteers who need some handholding and need to be encouraged and mentored, perhaps, and and maybe have an assigned person that can mentor them and say, okay, today we're going to call five representatives, or today we're going to write some letters. And I think they need a little bit of structure to keep them enthusiastic and keep them feeling like they have accomplished something and they have added something to our cause.
Well, I wanted to get into what some of your objectives were for your job coming up, and I think this is definitely a great objective. This new volunteer structure, this getting people involved from the very get-go, and we've talked about this before, how we bring people on and we lose a lot of people.
We lose people, I think, Dale, because I think that they feel that they haven't been able to contribute. So I want to make sure that everybody feels that in their own way, because everybody comes with different qualities, in their own way, that they can contribute to COS. The only requirement that we have is that they are, a patriot, and then they want to work with us within COS guidelines to help bring on more people and to encourage our congressmen to recognize our goals.
I don't think I think people that come into Commission of States believe in the concept. I think they believe in what's trying to be done, what we're trying to do, but it's getting them involved and holding their interest in getting involved is the key.
Yes, because each one of these volunteers is at home in their own environment. There's not somebody in the next cubicle that they can say, how did you handle this? Or what do you do about this? Or I have 2 hours of time today that I could devote to COS. What shall I do? I think that there's a little more direction that we can give to keep them engaged and keep them spreading the word and growing out and blossoming.
And I think that the concept of mentoring, I think, is very important. We've tried that over the years in different ways. I like your interest in trying and continuing to try this mentoring, because I think it's very important.
And there's probably no right way to do that. I think that each of the district captains and region captains have to look at their own team and look at what will work best for them. Can they do this on the phone? Do they need to make face-to-face meetings with them? Do they need to get together as a group? Can they have a phone conversation at the same time every week with that person and say, these are our assignments. These are our joint assignments for the week, so they don't feel like they're just doing this on their own.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Very good.
Well, Susan, I want to put out our email address here, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. If anyone is interested, wants to contact you, wants you to contact them, this is the way to get it done. Contact us via email, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Ken and I check those emails every day, and we'll pass that on to Susan. So, Susan, any last words or anything else that we've missed that you feel is important?
I just love all our volunteers. I think that they are on the right track, and together we can succeed.
Now, you reside up in the
northwest corner
of the state, right?
Sure do. And very close to a very blue state and a very blue city. So it's tough because there's a lot of people leaving Illinois right now because they feel that that's not representative of who they are or how they want to be governed. And so they're coming into Indiana, and Indiana does have a little bit, you feel a little bit more like you're represented in Indiana. So we have a lot of people coming with their same ideas, though, into our state. So we've got our work cut out for us.
Right. Well, Susan, congratulations on your promotion. And Ken, I think she's going to do a great job, don't you?
Oh, she's already started, Dale. She's already started that great job, and it's good to see Susan filling in with such affirmative action.
We'll get it. We'll get there.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good night, Susan.
Oh yeah. Well, I think Susan's going to do a great job for us. Yeah. Very,
Yep.
very pleased to have her on board. Well, Ken, let's start wrapping things up here. And I wanted to mention, first of all, that our next broadcast would normally be next Monday, but that happens to be July 3rd. And yeah, this year is flying by, isn't it?
I can't hang on to it. I mean, it just goes so fast.
I mean, it's almost halfway gone.
I know it.
And of course, July 4th is Tuesday. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a best of on July 3rd, on Monday, July 3rd, next Monday. So the next live broadcast will be actually on July 10th. So best of next Monday, July 3rd. I wanted to also mention our roundtable coming up next Monday on June 26th. Now, as if you all remember now, every fourth Monday of the month, we change the format of the COS Indiana live broadcast, and we change it to a roundtable discussion. And this month, the topic is going to be justice or just politics.
Sounds like another winner.
It sounds like another winner, doesn't it?
I think so.
I think that's kind of a hot topic right now, I believe, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we have to broaden that reach on that the best we can, because it's just I don't know, Dale. I never thought I'd see this occurring in my lifetime for sure, and certainly it's never happened before in history. So
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the roundtable coming up on June 26th, next Monday. We'll be talking about justice or just politics. Very, very good. I also want to make mention of our podcasts that we have available, and those can be found on Spotify.com. We do 2 podcasts. We offer the audio portion of these roundtable broadcasts. The one coming up, the next one coming up, of course, next Monday, June 26th. Mm-hmm. So the audio portion of that broadcast we will offer as a podcast. Then also we offer as a podcast something we call COS Indiana Live Voices. And on this podcast, Ken, we single out outstanding volunteers that we have in the state of Indiana, and we spend some time talking to them and getting to know them better, learning more about some of their background and so forth. And we just completed, I think it was episode number 7 on this, wasn't it?
Number 7, yeah. We were looking to tag down number 8 here soon, but yeah, number 7 was the one that we just finished.
And who did we feature on number 7?
I believe he's somebody that's been hanging around this place for about 60 some odd visits.
Yeah. Yes, we featured
as if that wasn't enough to get to know me, Dale. Yeah, I think it was me. Yeah.
So we featured Ken Kashuba on episode number 7. So I'm glad that that's recorded and available, because I plan on using that as evidence whenever the case may arise.
I'm sure you will.
No, it was a very good session, and we're looking at. I got to get busy and get number 8 lined up here, folks. We have a number of outstanding people here in the state of Indiana as COS volunteers. And we're going to have plenty of people to focus and to talk to on this podcast. And I don't think we'll ever run out of people to talk to, because we have some great dynamic volunteers here in the state of Indiana. We're very, very fortunate. We got a great group of people here in the state. So That's what we do in the area of podcast. Just want to mention one more time our email address, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. So if you have any other comments or questions, anything, Ken, that we need in the comments or questions tonight that we need to
No,
address?
it's been pretty much people listening. I think they are still numb from Debbie. So
You think so?
I think everybody's just sitting here numb, trying to take that all in. And I think maybe by next time around, we'll have some more people chiming in, or we may get a lot of questions on raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com based on that.
Yeah, we might.
Yeah, it's been kind of quiet, although we're seeing lots of people from the border tonight, the northern border, way up there, Michigan City, and over there near Gary, we got some people a person from Griffith tuning in. So we got some people up in those areas that have been tuning in pretty heavy. And of course, I'm sure there's some. I know Jerry's in tonight. There's some regular people that tune in that are part of our organization.
That's Susan's influence. See that?
Yeah.
See that
she's dragging them in from that north. Well, that's a corner we have to work on. So
yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, well, folks, that's it for us tonight. And I do want to mention, I guess I should mention this every time, our national website, conventionofstates.com. If you want to become a volunteer or get involved with, or just become a supporter of Convention of States, your first step is to go to this website, conventionofstates.com, and sign up and be a supporter, and hopefully get involved with us. So conventionofstates.com, that's the first step for you to take. So with that, let's say good night, Ken, and everyone have a great evening, and we will see you again. Well, of course, we'll be on the roundtable next Monday, the 26th. Then after that, then we'll be back live on July 10th. So have a good night.
Thanks, Dale. Good night.
See you.